So I just got a text message back from Chase Fleece, and he requested a certain set point. So we're gonna try to run it there and see what it pumps. So the last test was 200 MPa at 1,000 microseconds, and we gained 14 mm³ based off pressure. But we did pull 100 microseconds out, which is 10% of its injector on time. We still gained. So right now I've got it set at 210 MPa at 1,000 microseconds. Getting loud. 220 MPa, 1,000 US. So at 200, we pump 474. At 210, we pump 502.
We're not making more than 212. 212 MPa is all it's making.
So we're not making rail pressure. We either pop the seal in the body, probably,
Most likely.
which wouldn't surprise me because they ran that thing both return and delivery 6 times in a row. I had to have big rubber gloves to pull it out.
And I've ran it here before you even took it there a whole bunch of times. So.
Okay, so before we give up on this, do you want to tear it apart, tear the seal out of it? The seals are not factory Bosch seals, so you're not going to see that. But you can follow me down to the EDM, and we'll start setting up nozzles there. We'll find our tungsten, and we'll show you that process right now. So right now, I've actually got to tear the machine apart because we were running some different stuff, some 12 valve stuff with different wire diameters than what we're going to be running here in a minute. So we've got wire guides and guide sleeves that have to be changed out in order to hold the new wire that we're going to be using correctly. We kind of clean things up a little bit before we put them all away. Really big on having all the different options for valve guides and contact blocks. And they're expensive little suckers. So when we bought the EDM, we bought a lot of them. But recently we found that we were having a tough time getting some of the wires to work correctly. So we had to buy another valve wire guide. And this is brand new. So potentially, this might work better than we've ever used before. And it might be kind of sticky. It might just be a little bit small. But we're going to try it and see how it works. We changed out the wire guide, changed out all the rest of tooling, changed the program. So we're actually putting the right amount of electricity into the wire. Too much, bad, not enough, worse. You see how this first one looks?
Yep.
Skylar found a problem with the body that we were just testing. So we've got that nozzle swapped on another body.
Yep.
And here in a minute, we're going to EDM this. We'll finish this. I'll dry it out. I'll show you what it looks like before any extrude hone work. Just for giggles, we'll throw it on the body because people call up and they're like, hey, I want some 6x18s or whatever. Just to show you guys how much it screws up the flow to not extrude hone them. We'll run the one that's on the body right now, which is the same size hole, but it's been extruded on, so we have some K factor. It's going to pump, let's say it pumps 530. Then we'll put this on here, and I guarantee we lose like 40 mm cubed using the exact same size hole. K factor is a big deal. If you don't believe me, then watch the video over. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's go run your body.
You want to crank it 225, see if it runs? It should. Do you want 1,000 225?
1,000 225, yeah.
It should make it now.
Okay, so here's what we just discovered. He just ran this a moment ago, got one hit out of it, pumped.
470 and 1100, 160.
470 mm cubed,
Yep.
1100 microseconds to 160. And after that hit with the big body mod, the body wants to pump more than this nozzle's willing to take. So on a dyno, in a drag race, in a sled pull, these would live because you're only at wide open throttle for maybe 6 or 8 seconds. But when you're in the test stand, you're 20 seconds at wide open throttle to just purge the air out. And then you've got to run it for another 30 seconds at wide open throttle. So basically, if you were brave enough or had enough flat land to use 2,500 horsepower for 50 seconds, that's what one test it in the stand is like. So trying to get these big injectors to stay cool enough becomes very sensitive. And what we're just discovering right now is at 225 MPa, with the nozzle we've got, we're trying to pump so much through the nozzle, the body's getting too hot and it's failing the bodies. So in order for this to really work, we're gonna have to increase the size of the nozzle again, but we don't know how much. So this is where we say it's gonna take us 4 or 5 hours to build this set, and it takes 2 goddamn days because we end up ruining a bunch of parts along the way. Once we get the recipe, we document the heck out of it, we know how to do it next time, and then it takes 4 or 5 hours. But we've never actually required any of these things to pump 225 MPa for like a minute until here recently. So
I don't think the seals are failing. I want to inspect the control valve.
I was gonna say what you could do is you could
I don't think it's the seals that are failing.
run the nozzle for another 10 seconds. I'm wondering if that nozzle that I just made is gonna be technically too small to do this.
Well, we gotta figure out why it's doing this first.
All right, so if you'll do that, we've got one body that we can put that nozzle on. We'll just run it at 160, 1100, and then we'll put the same physical size nozzle on the same body just to show everybody what K factor does.
Yeah.
And then that'll give you time to figure out what's wrong with this body and figure out if we need to go with a bigger nozzle. Okay, Doug? I'll set the machine.
So what do you want to do?
I'll set the machine for 1100.
160.
160.
We should let it go into return too. Because we know what return just did.
Pull the return line off and let's see what it does.
Oh, let's measure it because it just did. So at 1100 160, it did 30 on the return.
I just wonder if it's physically hurt right now and it's just blowing out, is what I'm saying.
That's true.
So you guys won't be able to see this, but instead of waiting for all that time, we just pulled the return line off so we'll physically be able to see it. So as soon as I start this thing and it starts to cycle, if it's just bubbling out of the body, we know the body's really, really hurt. So machine's back to 1100 at 160. Don't look bad.
No, it's not horrible, no.
So we're not going to count the return on this, but we are going to show you guys what this nozzle does with K-factor on this body. And then I'm going to go grab the one that has not been extrude honed yet. We'll bolt it to the same body and show you what it pumps in millimeters cubed. So we got 478.8, 477.9, 478.3, about 479. If you can grab that nozzle off there, I'll get the other one. We're going to bolt the other nozzle on. I took just a second while I went to go pick up that nozzle, measured the spray hole size. 16 thou 8/10 is what the spray hole actually is, previous to any extrude hone. As soon as we shove a little extrude hone through almost any hole, you gain about 3/10 of a thou on the outside, which you can't feel with a pin gauge. Don't ever call me and tell me you know what size your holes are based off a pin gauge. You're wrong. So we measured it with Vision Center, 16 thou 8/10. The other nozzle, use same size wire?
Yep, same size wire.
And we've honed it for 40 seconds, probably 40 seconds.
At least.
I'll go measure that, but I bet if this is 16.8, I'll bet that's 17.3.
Somewhere in there, probably.
Yeah, about a half thou bigger. So basically, same size wire, same size hole. If you try to pin gauge it, it'll be the same size for sure. But we're just gonna run this thing. The last time it made 478, right? 479?
479, yep.
So at 160, at 1100, this injector just pumped 478, 479 cc's. Sounds flat. Sounds really boring. Sounds like I'm driving to the grocery store to get Gerber.
It's really boring.
It's horrible. So this now pumps 403 to 404, 405, 404, 405. K-factor is a huge deal. We just lost damn near 25% of our volume. 25% of what the engine runs on is missing, just not there. So if you don't have all these tools under one roof, it is very difficult to come up with a very consistent product.
Yep.
Because there's been plenty of times that I EDM something, they hone something, you get it, you go to calibrate it, it won't come around. Mm-hmm. We go back, we measure, the EDM screwed up a little bit, the hone guy screwed up a little bit, one of the holes plugged during processing, and we've got to rebuild that part that day in order to get that set out.
Yep.
So if you don't have the EDM, the blanks, the extrude hone, the calibration stands, all within very short walking distance, and you have to UPS something, it's very difficult to make sure that you're getting the exact same product every single time. Because extrude hone media changes with temperature in the room. So we try to keep the room temperature at 71 degrees all year long. We try to keep the extrude hone media very consistent. Our media bill is more than our rent, or our mortgage, I should say. So media is a big deal, and K-factor is critical. So I will measure, just for giggles, the spray holes, but bear in mind that they were done with the exact same size wire. So it's just a matter of how much did the extrude hone move this. That one is 16.8 before any fluid got run through it. It might be a little bit bigger right now.
Deburred itself.
Yeah. So let's say that was 17 thou. This will be 17.3-ish, I'm pretty sure. So I'll go measure this just for giggles right now. And then, what do you think? Should we run this another 10 seconds? Bolt it in that body and see if Because ultimately, if we continuously gain at 160, 1100, we gain. We're going to get to a point where at 220, at 1000, the restriction is much less, and we still haven't destroyed the part.
Yeah.
So we kind of need to back it down. 160, 1100. We need to keep running this until we flatline it.
Yes.
And then we'll know that the nozzle is at max.
Yeah, we can flatline it at 11R 160, and then we can figure out.
I'll measure this right now. I'll have him run 10 seconds. We'll throw it on this body and see what it pumps.